1, 2, the cut down. We are going to be talking about, finally, the newly announced iPhone 13 and iPhone 13 Pro. Yes, finally, after all the leaks and rumors, it's now officially been announced. And there were a couple of surprises and things that happened in the overall event. But this particular video, on the cut down, we are going to be discussing my thoughts on the 4 new iPhone 13 models, which is the 13 mini, the 13, 13 Pro, and 13 Pro Max. Yes, not the 12S. Does that mean Apple is dropping the S moniker on their naming scheme? Who knows? Potentially. But yeah, if you find yourself here for the first time on the cut down and you like this more chilled take on your weekly news in the world of tech with a kind of more of a relaxed podcast style, I've been seeing a lot of people coming here, man. Definitely be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And yeah, more of that, where it came from for the cut down. Yes, so Apple finally announced the iPhone 13 and 13 Pro with the mini, 13, 13 Pro, and Pro Max. And on the main Lover of Tech channel, which definitely go subscribe there as well, I had the iPhone 12 Pro Max, right? I bought that one, but I was very fortunate enough to get to use the other 3 models, the 12, the 12 mini, as well as the 12 Pro. Still got the 12 here. Still working with the 12. God, I can still say my place. Yeah, so working with the 12, still got the 12 here. And the 12 is a sensible one, but I didn't enjoy the 12 Pro Max. I think it was just too cumbersome, and software wise it just didn't make sense for how the phone was. But I definitely recommend checking all my videos on there on the Lover of Tech channel on the iPhone 12 Pro Max. But yeah, we're going to dive in and pretty much look at the iPhone 13. Again, I'm based in the UK, so we'll look at it from a UK perspective and pretty much see how Apple have broken down the iPhone 13 and what my thoughts are on it. So transitioning through, we've got new stuff. No new Mac, but we do have new iPhones. And as you can see, 13 and 13 Pro new. So let's click on that and see what's up over here. We are going to see what's good over here. Cool. So iPhone 13, scroll down, and our most advanced dual camera system yet. Durable, front and center to the edge. Lightning fast. They've got the new A15 Bionic chip, and apparently still based on a 5nm process, generation 2. A huge leap in battery life. They've actually put bigger batteries in there. Cool. New power. Boom, 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 boom. Watch the event. And for UK, for once, Apple have actually made it cheaper. UK iPhones always end up being more expensive comparable to what is in the USA. So it's good to see they've made it cheaper. And they've actually doubled the base storage. We'll get into the tech specs later and really check that out in that sense. But you've got new when it comes to pink, and you've got a new blue finish, midnight finish, which is obviously their black, starlight, which is kind of like their white finish or silver, and you've got their product red. So with their ceramic shield, as was there before, and you can see the 13 and the 13 mini with 6.1 inches, same as before, and 5.4 inches for the mini, which the 12 mini was my favorite iPhone. Durable, water resistance, obviously IP68, but much longer and deeper. And it's just thinking diagonally. They've upgraded the cameras and they've positioned them diagonally. We designed a totally new architecture and turned the lenses 45 degrees to fit the best dual lens ever. So this is all down to new ultra wide angle lens, and it's better for low light, and the new wide camera that captures 47% more light. New sensor shift. So they've put the same sensor shift technology that's on the sensor, not on the actual lenses themselves, that you found on the 12 Pro in the 13 model. So that's good to see. That's good to see. That's not a bad thing. And it even fits in the mini, which is great. It's going to help with low light photography, better stabilization. And then you've got cinematic mode. So iPhone went to film school, so you don't have to. Great. Now, the cinematic mode, I actually thought it was just on a Pro, but it's good that we're going through this. It looks like it's on the 13 as well by the looks of it. And this works up to 1080p 30 frames a second, and it puts all the depth information into this looks quite impressive, and it's going to be quite interesting to see that for product shots, not just for these kind of cinematic situations as well. As product shots for video go, this might be very useful. You've got Dolby Vision HDR for their 10-bit video and their high dynamic range video. Night mode is improved by the looks of it. Standard affairs, it looks like the cameras have had a decent refinement in terms of upgrade, right? And you've got different styles as well. Okay, I'm gonna be eager to do a camera comparison on this, hopefully, and we'll discuss in terms of just what we would be getting in there. So it looks like they've shrunken the notch cutout for Face ID as well. So they've made it smaller by 20%, what they said. All these new modes there. Base storage is 128 gigabytes as mentioned before. Yeah, this is the iPhone 13. Super Retina XDR display. It's gone up to 800 nits from 265 nits from what I remember. And then obviously peak is still 1200. And they've put a bigger battery in there, so we won't know until later on, because Apple doesn't like to release the milliamp hours. So they're saying that you're getting up to 2.5 hours more battery life on the 13 and 1.5 hours more on the 13 mini, which is very, very interesting. A15 Bionic, and apparently this has 4 cores when it comes to the GPU, and the 13 Pro has more, so we'll delve into that as well. And again, we have that game changing, and it says 50%, and they were comparing it against the competition, not against themselves like what they usually do. So that's a very interesting approach. You've got 5G, and obviously if you're in the USA, then you're gonna get millimeter wave, and yes, of course it does come with iOS 15 out of the box, which is to be expected. Cool. And we go over to the tech specs very quickly. You can see it right there. All the color finishes, a quick summary here. 128 gigabytes, 256, 512. And then you've got the same display sizes, same resolutions as before. Basically full high definition plus slightly higher on the 13. Brighter displays, which is great to see. And they're class leading IP68 with 6 meters rather than 1.5. And then this is the breakdown for the A15. 4-core GPU, you'll see that on the Pro model it's slightly higher, and all the camera specs are right there. Wider aperture, better low light, still no zoom lens, but you know, that's fine, no gimmicks there. And you've got your video, where now the Dolby Vision HDR has been pushed up to 60 frames a second up to you, whereas before it was only at 30 frames a second. And the cinematic mode for the shallow depth of field in videos, 1080p 30 frames a second. They should have a 24 frames a second option in there. So yeah, when we look at we'll go back up. We're gonna go to iPhone, and we're gonna go to iPhone 13 Pro. And yeah, this is the granddaddy. This looks like finally they're living up slightly more to their Pro name. And why is that? Let's have a look. So we're seeing all these lovely animations. And definitely, man, again, you enjoy this, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications, man. More chill take on your tech news. Dramatically new, fastest chip in the world, exceptional durability, a huge leap in battery life, and let's go Pro. All right, so next week, Friday, starting at £949. Wow, they've actually made iPhones slightly cheaper in the UK. I'm amazed. And you are finally getting a Super Retina XDR display with Pro Motion. Yes, Apple, thank you for finally adding Pro Motion. So we've got their new Sierra blue color, and this feels more like a blue, because I complained about the Pacific blue last year. I didn't like it. You've got the silver, you've got the gold, and you've got the graphite. Yeah, I'm feeling the Sierra blue. Surgical gray stainless steel. Not a fan of the smudginess of the stainless steel. I really wish they went with a brush finish personally. Ceramic shield, IP68, yes. Okay, now when it comes to the cameras, this is where things really get down and dirty. So if we look at this, they look to have really had a bump, right? You've got macro photography that's built into the ultra wide angle camera now, all thanks to the fact that the ultra wide angle lens does have autofocus. Yes, autofocus built in. So it basically acts like a fourth camera lens built into the ultra wide, which is really good, really good. So you can get really close, up to 2 centimeters, which looks like they've been watching what the competition does with macro. And then bring on the night. Low light has been improved. The wide camera adds wider aperture and the larger sensor yet, which is great. And it leverages the LiDAR scanner as well for night mode. And the ultra wide gets a wider aperture, a faster sensor, and also all new autofocus. And the telephoto also has night mode, which it didn't before, which is great to see. 92% more light. This I'm very eager to test out, because the low light performance versus the competition, when I did my camera comparison last year with the 12 Pro Max, yeah, tanked. Was not the one at all. 3x optical zoom, great, but there's probably a caveat here in terms of the aperture. And then we've got cinematic mode. Again, we won't go through that, but we pretty much know how cinematic works with 1080p up to 30 frames a second. And you will be getting ProRes later on. This is very interesting. And ProRes is an advanced video file codec. It gives you high range of colors. And the most important thing is, it's so much easier to edit on your computer. ProRes is such a nice codec to edit on your computer. It's amazing. It's amazing. So this is quite impressive. And I believe apparently it is the 422 10-bit version of ProRes, not the LT or the HQ. You know, it's coming later on, and this is going to be interesting. This is going to be very interesting. And I would love to see what limitations there are in terms of the recording modes. Can it go all the way up to 4K? That would make editing camera comparisons for me much easier. Tons of tech behind each shot. Yep. And this is it right here. So the telephoto zoom does go up to 3x, but it drops the aperture to 2.8, whereas it was on 2.2 before, and the 2x on the normal 13 Pro was at 2.0. So it's going to lose a lot of light. So it's good that they've added night mode in there. The ultra wide, great to see that it's got a faster sensor, larger aperture, focus pixels, meaning that it's got autofocus built into there, and night mode as well, which is great from before. And then the main camera sensor has a large, almost 2 micron pixel size, an f1.5 aperture, bigger sensor as well. And it does have the sensor shift OIS that was built in to the sensor itself, which is great to see. Wow, this, I have to admit, I can't wait to camera comparison this one. Yeah, and I will tell you what one I would go for personally, and also what one is the most sensible. And it says, no wonder why the selfies are good. Obviously A15 Bionic, true depth, and up to 1 terabyte storage. Crazy. And then meet the 120 Hz adaptive refresh. Finally, Apple, thank you for joining the party. Lord, have I not been waiting for this one? Have I not been waiting for this one? And yes, it's adaptive, so it goes all the way down to 10 Hz, up to 120 times, all kinds of frame rate in between, and intelligently ramps up. And it's going to be very interesting to see how they deal with the stutter when it comes to that, if there is any stutter at all. And you've got the 5-core version of a GPU for the A15 Bionic chip, which is great. And it's said that the graphics improvement is a lot better than the CPU performance, which is expected. It's still based on 5 nanometers, and it's 25% brighter. And yeah, it's great. It's great. This looks like a great OLED display, and with the smaller notch as well, this is good. This is good. This is good. All the standard things when it comes to that, and a bigger battery as well, 1.5 more hours, and then the max is 2.5. Apparently that max is meant to have like a 4,300 milliamp hour battery. 5G as expected, iOS 15 as well. We'll go to quick ramp up of the tech specs. Yep. And then we've got the iPhone 13 Pro. Sierra Blue, I'm feeling that one. I'm feeling it more than the Pacific Blue, I won't lie to you. Thank you for finally adding Oh no, actually no, they already had 128. What am I talking about? But with ProRes, I think you will need that terabyte, and it looks like that's a very, very interesting one. So we'll scroll down up to a terabyte, and then we'll look at the prices of both. It's great to see the 120 hertz 5-core version of the A15, so much more powerful. All the camera specs right there as we went through before, and then you've got the same cinematic mode again, and you've got the ProRes. So I can see ProRes video here that this is something I spotted out, and I think that's quite a shame. I think if they were going to do this, they should have just made the base storage 256 gigs, right? Because it looks like with ProRes recording, it goes up to 4K 30, which is great to see in 4210-bit, which is amazing. But if you have 128 gigabytes, you lose storage. So you lose the feature down. And I guess like ProRes does take up a lot of storage. The bitrate is very high, but I don't know how I feel about that. Yep. And if we go to pre-order in terms of pricing, we go to the 13 Pro. Boom. I think you've got 949, 1049, 1249, 1449 for the 1 terabyte for the Pro. And then for the Max, it's basically 149. So that's £50 cheaper. Boom, 1149, 1349 for the 512, and the terabyte goes all the way up to almost foldable money, but you do get a terabyte storage. So credit to that if you're going to be doing a lot of recording in ProRes. Yeah, that's amazing. Am I saying that's amazing? I am. iPhone. We'll go to iPhone and we'll go to 13 and we'll look at the pre-order price. Again, this will be a slightly longer take, but it's all good. That's what you're here for. That's what the cut down is about, man. So £179, which is cheaper as well, which is good. Yeah, so 512 gigs goes up to 979, 679, 779. It looks like the price jump to 512 is a lot higher. Wow. Okay, that's a lot higher. The £200 gap there. I think 256 gig would be the best value. 128 can be managed as well. And the 13, boom, there we are. 799, 779, 879, and then 1,000. Yeah, over £1,000 for 13. Yeah, no, I wouldn't. Right. So we've pretty much delved into that, right? And this is now going to be my hot take on my thoughts on it. Here's my thoughts on it. I'm actually weirdly enough impressed. I'm impressed. I mean, better late than never. I'm impressed. We'll talk about the things that are missing, right? We still don't get USB-C. Like, why? No USB-C when everything else that you've been doing on your products, Apple, since 2015 with that 12-inch MacBook that you've now discontinued is USB-C, you still don't want to do it for iPhones. Still Lightning, the pain of Lightning, and with USB 2.0 transfer speeds as well, the nightmare that comes with it. No always on display. We didn't get an always on display, which is crazy to me. Yes, a smaller notch, but the notch is still there. No touch ID. Yes, things are coming back to normal-ish, but still no form of touch ID. Would have loved to have seen touch ID. If not in the display, at least on a power button. But overall, I'm impressed. Here's where I would say the normal 13, just like I said with the iPhone 12, is the most sensible one to get. I think the normal 13 will be the most sensible one to get, especially now with double the storage, which is what I said they needed to do. There's still phones at that price point that should have high refresh rate, at least a 90 hertz, but maybe that will be safe for next year. Will be interesting. The normal 13 will be the most sensible one to get. The 13 mini will be that niche one that will be just so good to have, because I really, really love what the 13 is about, the 13 mini. The 13 Pro Max, unless you ultimately want battery life, is the most cumbersome one, and I would not recommend that. iPhones and Apple just do not know how to make and build big screen devices when it comes to their smartphones. They just don't have a clue. the software doesn't behave well to it, from multitasking to app rearrangements to seeing icons at the top. Apparently you still can't see your battery gauge with this smaller notch. They're not utilizing the software properly for that. But the one I would get is, and I swore to myself that because of such a bad experience I had with this iPhone 12 Pro Max, with the big bulkiness of it that just does not handle well, and then the software doesn't behave well with the big screen, would be the 13 Pro. The 13 is the most sensible. That's the one most people to go for. Really love a small phone that is a flagship. 13 mini can't be beaten, especially with the bigger battery that's in there now, which is great to see. But the one I would get is the 13 Pro. And I said this when I reviewed the 12 Pro on the Lover of Tech channel. I instantly regretted the fact that I actually spent my own money on the 12 Pro Max. Because if I spent my own money on the 12 Pro, as well as that, I would have used the iPhone more. The 12 Pro Max, I ended up selling it in the end after a year because it was just paperweight. So I'm so glad that that was the case. That was a big learning lesson for me, especially for someone that uses a lot of big phones. I've got a Moto S20 Pro, I've got an S21 Ultra, was using the Fold 2. It made me dislike big phones, and I've not felt that way in a long time, so if I was going to buy an iPhone, which I'm not going to buy any of the iPhone 13 this year, there's just no point. In my mind, I was a 12 Pro Max user. I'm not upgrading the year. Will I be getting them as review units? I would like to think so. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So on the main Lover of Tech channel, definitely come over there. You'll see full reviews, and I'll be getting them as review units, most likely for a decent amount of length of time where I can generally use them and test them and review them. And I'll be happy to share that content out, no problem. But if I was to be getting my own, if I was coming from something like an iPhone 10, iPhone 10s, and maybe an iPhone 11 series, right? From the 11 Pro, 11 Pro Max, for me, I would be getting the 13 Pro. Most people should get the 13. You really love a small phone, get the 13 mini. Unless you ultimately, and it's yet to be tested, you really value that high battery life that is meant to offer on the Pro Max, then yeah, go for it. But usability on the Pro Max, nah. iPhone Pro Max phones just have the worst handling and usability, and I don't say that to cap. I say that fully. So that's my take. In terms of certain things that we're missing, but overall, I hate to say it, especially from a UK perspective where they've made it cheaper slightly, I'm quite impressed. And I didn't think I would say that. I'm quite impressed. I'm usually quite hard on Apple products, right? I'm quite impressed enough to be like, hey, this is good. And I think with things like ProRes and also, the cinematic mode, we'll definitely see how well that works, as well as, just double the storage, a terabyte of storage, 120 hertz now, improved hardware on the camera. Yes, there's certain things missing. It's not bad. Your jury's out, but these are my thoughts and a long take on the iPhone 13 series, which is a 13 mini, 13 Pro, and 13 Pro Max. Let me know in the comment section below if you pre-ordered any of them and what's your thoughts on it, what's your general consensus, and we can have a healthy discussion about it. You enjoy this more podcast, laid back, chilled approach to your tech news, then definitely be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos on a cut down. Catch you later.